Thank you very much for coming to see us this morning, everybody. This is our Breeio Bright Insights talk on implementing a new LMS, and it's really great to see so many of you here. And there's a good reason that we've chosen a picture with people in it for this first slide for the introduction. The rest of the presentation doesn't have very many pictures of people, but it's important that we remember that what we're doing has people at the center of it, and that we need to bring them along with us, as well as sort out the nitty-gritty practical things of implementing a new LMS. Now, I think at the very start, we'd like to ask you a question, and we'll get to discussing some of it towards the end. So if you use the chat function here, the chat icon's at the bottom of your screen. Make sure that you're sending the message to everyone, and just let us know what the kind of chief concerns are that you have that are preventing you from implementing a new LMS project. So I would should say that if you have any questions during the talk, just drop them in the chat, and we'll take some of them at the end. I guess without further ado, we're being joined today by Matthew Borg. Matthew's one of the partners at Actian, and he's worked for more than 20 years on LMS implementation projects for clients in all kinds of different sectors. He's been implementing LMS platforms from the very beginning, when an LMS was a brand new piece of software that very, very few people knew about, hardly any companies were using. And he's going to share some of the insights that he's gleaned from those couple of decades working in this constantly evolving sector with us today. Now, we understand that working on a new implementation project can be daunting. Now, it might even feel overwhelming, but our aspiration when we're working on a new implementation is that this is how our clients are going to feel at the end of it, that they're all going to talk about how easy the implementation itself was, and that the support they received from us at Actian was very strong. So if you could just let us know, as I see a few more have just joined us. Welcome, good morning. We'd just like to know in the chat what your chief concerns are as you approach a new LMS implementation project. What might be stopping you from pulling the trigger, so to speak, or what do you find particularly daunting about the prospect of a new implementation? If you just let us know in the chat, we'll be able to address some of those, hopefully in the presentation, or maybe at the end when we're finished. Oh, I see. So Anna says there's a bit of cynicism about effectiveness of digital versus traditional training. That's certainly true, and that really hasn't gone away in the whole time that people have been using LMSs. So I think that's a pretty good response. Fear of change as well. That's also true. And Alex in London says that the sheer size and scope of moving from one to another, bringing those who are reluctant on board. And I think, Alex, you're going to find some really excellent ideas for how to do that in this presentation by Matthew. Sally says that acceptance of the system and users taking ownership, also very, very good points that we're going to address. So, Matthew, I think over to you.
Great, thanks, Connor. It's good to be with you all this morning. I hope that what we have prepared is going to answer some of those questions and at least give you some new tools or some new ideas about how you can implement successfully and to get it to be a manageable piece of work. As Connor said, it's something that I've been doing for the last 20 years with our team at Actian. So I've worked with very small, very large organizations. The issues tend to be the same. It's just the scale of sometimes the amount of data or the number of users, but the issues tend to be the same. So whether you're a very large organization or a small organization, hopefully what we've got for you this morning will be helpful. We're going to break it down into kind of three phases as we talk about things this morning. So there's like a preparation or prepare, configure, and launch. And those three things, they kind of happen sequentially, but we've shown them here overlapping because some of the things that you're thinking about during preparation are actually applicable in the launch, and that's when you're actually going to start using them. So there's quite a lot of overlap, but we'll break it up into those kind of three phases. But the important thing also is to remember that kind of direction arrow right there at the sign in the middle. What are we doing this for? What's our objective? Where are we trying to go with this? And that kind of applies to all. So that's the center that we'll keep coming back to. Okay, so let's start with prepare. And here we're thinking about things like setting objectives, the case for the learning management system, dealing with our people data, records, and planning for our courses. I'm not going to go through each of these in detail. I'm going to pull out a couple in each section, but we'll touch on each as we go. But let's start with objectives and case for the learning platform. Really, the questions that we want to be asking here are what does your organization really want to see? What is the outcome that they're looking for? Why would this implementation be undertaken? Why would this purchase be made? You might want to be thinking about what senior leaders are talking about. It could be that there's cost pressure, increased competition, a desire to improve quality or product knowledge. Listen to what the senior leaders are saying, what they're writing, and then align your case for a learning platform with those things. Another thing that's important to be doing is thinking about what measures, what KPIs might move if we get this implementation right. And you want to really be holding fast to the answers that you come to here. These are this is your business rationale that you're going to be taking maybe to the other members of the team. This is your senior team has endorsed this business rationale. This is what you're going to take when you go knock on IT's door and ask for support there. It's not just about implementing a learning platform. It's about improving engagement. It's about lowering our costs. It's about all of these other benefits that you might have. This is kind of your central purpose that you want to keep coming back to. And this model sometimes is important. We tend to think of things in this way, that things start with a business need. They don't start with a training need or a learning platform need. They start with something that the business needs to see happen, which leads then to people development getting involved. We can help with that. It might be that a learning platform is part of helping with that LMS implementation. That should then lead to some kind of people outcome, which should then lead to a business outcome. So we want to be thinking about that even now. What are we aiming to do? And how is that tied to what the business is telling us? This is going to be really important when we come to the end and we're feeding back how we did on this, that we continue to speak that language of business need and business outcome and the difference that we made in this implementation. I came across this just yesterday. One of my kind of colleagues on LinkedIn is doing some research into this, and she was sharing this quick poll, which I thought was appropriate to us this morning. And she's asking, which single indicator would help you be confident that your digital learning culture has improved? So there she is asking that question. How will we know that we've made a difference? And maybe you're trying to improve your digital learning culture. And what will it be? Will it be engagement in the platform? Will it be the fact that managers and stakeholders are taking some ownership of this? Will it be that you see more community sharing and support? Whatever it is, you want to be thinking about that at the very beginning of the project as we get started. So that's objectives and case. And we've got some tools and things that Connor can help you with that can help you build a business case as well. We're not going to go into that, but those are things that you can reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help you with that. People data is another big kind of preparation step, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on because it's really important. Again, we've got what we call a kind of people data planner that helps you decide which people data elements are going to be important for your implementation. Really, the question that we're asking here at this point is, what people information that we might have in our HR system or our Active Directory or whatever we've got, our payroll system, what people information will be useful in our learning platform when we're assigning training, when we're reporting on training. So it's going to be things like a unique identifier. So we're not just hanging on people's names. It might be their employee ID. It might be an email. We're going to want things like, how can we communicate with them via email? Maybe you have mobile phone numbers and you can use SMS. Their job role is going to be really important because you may want to assign specific training or make optional training for specific job roles. You might also want, particularly on reporting, to be able to decide who's in what division or what department or what location. Country may be important for you. Particularly in the UK, we've got lots of differences. There might be laws that apply in Scotland that don't apply in England, and as well as Wales and Northern Ireland. I know certainly within the care sector, there are lots of differences, and so it's really important that we know what country that person's in so that they're assigned the appropriate training. Something like joining date might also be important. You might want to roll out things for a particular cohort of people that joined at a particular time. So you might want to gather that data. But that people data planner that we'll make available after is a good kind of checklist to go down. What do I want to be including when I bring my people data into the learning platform? And you may have existing training records. This is certainly applicable to people who are maybe thinking about switching platforms. You'll have existing training records that you can export from that other system and then import into your new LMS. There'll be things that you want to set up and formatting and things, but that's very manageable. We've done imports of kind of millions of records in some cases where thousands and thousands of people, and again, it's a matter of getting it formatted correctly and working together with kind of both of your suppliers. But certainly, if you're new to learning platforms, you may be recording things on Excel spreadsheets now. That can be translated into importing it into the system so that people start, when they open up on day one, they start with credit. They've already done that training that needs to be done every year, and so they don't need to do it immediately. They do it, in 5 months' time or whenever your records say. The next piece is really thinking about the content, the courses that you're going to offer. So we've got just a screen here of the Breeio interface. It would be different on different learning platforms, but what e-learning or kind of self-paced content do you want to offer? And also, what instructor-led sessions courses do you want to be delivering, whether that's actually in a physical classroom, or it could be on Zoom or WebEx or Teams or whatever platform you're using. You can be thinking, okay, these are the courses that we want to deliver, and you're starting to kind of assemble that content and assemble those courses and plan for how you're going to deliver that. So that's how we would classify the preparation stage. Those are the key elements. Next, we go on to kind of pulling some of that together and beginning to configure the system itself. So here, the first item here is designing pathways. And what we're talking about here is we've got our people data, we have our courses and the content that we want to offer. How do we join those two things together? How do I make sure that the appropriate people get the appropriate training content and have it available to them? Connor's going to walk us through a tool that's inside Breeio for doing this. But it could be, you know, in another platform, you'll have other options. Perhaps you might do it in an Excel spreadsheet. But Connor, could you show us how we might do pathways within Breeio? Sorry, Connor, you're muted there.
Sorry, that happens all the time. So thank you very much. Breeio, I think you're right. Breeio does have a tool to help you organize this process. So you can see that we have a number of different roles listed, and I normally recommend that you think about the design pathway at the very basic level in terms of a role. So you can see in this panel how many courses everyone has assigned, how many colleagues have that content. Now, if we look down the page and we find the HR manager role, which is a very important role, we can click into it and find the content that's been assigned to HR managers. And we might decide that maybe they need some additional content in the form of our Managing Effective Teams course. So we can assign that to them nice and smoothly. So just a couple of clicks and it's into their workflow like that. I mean, that might be cases where you are assigning not by role, but it's useful to start with role as the kind of basic building block in most cases.
That's great. Thanks, Connor. And again, there are lots of different ways of doing that, but that gives that pathways tool kind of gives you a clear view of what each role is being assigned. And it's kind of a helpful way of seeing that. You can also go in and choose a course and then say, I want all these roles, or I want all my people to do it. You just do it in one click. So you kind of hit all the roles at once. Moving on here in the configuration, one of the things that you might do in this phase is integrate with your HR platform or your payroll system or your Active Directory or your cloud-based people data. And so using that people data plan that you had in the planning stage and preparation stage, you might ask the learning platform to integrate with the HR system so that automatically new joiners get added, people who leave get taken off, if people's names change or they move roles or they move site, all of that just happens automatically. So you can integrate with the HR system during this configuration stage, save you a lot of time in managing that user population. You might also want to be thinking about kind of system user levels, who's going to have access to different things, reporting, making assignments, being able to view people data, and you can manage that and kind of delegate out throughout your organization different levels of access. And it's kind of tailored right down to, I want this person to be able to draw reports on their team. So, you know, whether that team's 5 or 500, they can go in and all they'll see when they go into their area is the reports for their particular team. Next in this stage is really engagement options. How are we going to use the platform, maybe the tools that exist within the software that you're going with for engaging your people in the learning? Maybe this is about the learning culture, but getting them to really answering some of those questions about, you know, the kind of cynicism of, or kind of users accepting a system, taking ownership. How can we use what's within the platform to kind of draw people in? Connor's going to show us a few of the examples of the sorts of things you might do on the platform.
Thank you. That's right. So we're looking here at an example system and some of the ways that we can use the system itself to engage our colleagues. So how you present the learning is very, very important. And what we're looking at here is a Breeio branded system, but you should think about the branding and the colors that you want to use to best represent your organization. You might have specific images that are really relevant to your own brand, and you can use them to tell a visual story in the LMS. So at the top here, you can see what we call the hero bar. And that's a nice way to promote specific messages and place them right at the top of the page. So some of our clients like to advertise new optional courses that are available or to promote an initiative that the company is rolling out. We have one client who uses it to promote their employee reward scheme, which I think is quite a nice idea. We've then got a number of different tiles here you can see in this interface. And it's really helpful to be using engaging images on the dashboard. So just put a bit of thought behind the images that you're using and what you're choosing to say with them. So there are places on the page as well where you can keep news stories or have a learning blog. There's an area where learners can share things they found interesting. So maybe a relevant video from YouTube or a document that they've been using at their site that's helpful. They can upload that and share it on the homepage. Now, if it fits the learning culture that you're trying to create, you might want to have a leaderboard. So this could be on an individual basis. One of our clients likes to do it between different sub-regions in the organization. You might want to gamify some elements of the system. That's quite popular. Really depends on your audience, though. You might want to drive news to specific elements of an internal audience. So maybe you've just got some news that's only for people in the finance department, and you can do that using the system. Now, you might not strictly think of it.
I think we just lost Connor there for a moment. I'm gonna pick up where he left off. Down there at the bottom of the screen, we have the reports that are available, and these would be for the manager when they come into the dashboard. They'll have their specific reports on their team, anything that they've been given access to. They'll have kind of direct feed from those reports down at the bottom. I think it's important to remember that the things we're talking about here that Connor was mentioning are part of the configure stage. They're not part of a kind of accept what you're given stage. So you're entirely in charge of whether you want people sharing things, whether you want to use awards leaderboard, what sort of news you want to do. It's yours to craft, and I think that's really important that whatever platform you go with, you're able to you're able to own it and configure it to fit your organization. We got Connor back. Good to see you, Connor. Okay, so that's prepare and configure. We're going to move on now to the third phase, which is moving on to the launch. And here we've got things like our communication, or maybe you might call it kind of your marketing plan. This again is addressing a lot of those things that you raised at the beginning. What people think about it, will they use it? Do they think it's effective enough? A lot of that has to come in, I think, during your communication stage. So we're going to start with communication plan. And I'm just going to talk to you for a second about some of the awards that we've won over the years. And I want to highlight the top one there. We've won four times the award for best e-learning project securing widespread adoption. And what that really means is implementing a learning platform in a culture that was resistant, in a culture where people were cynical, in a culture where no one thought that it was the right thing, but actually turning that around and making a huge impact within the organization. But one of the ways that happens is through the communication plan. So we're going to spend a little bit of time this morning kind of walking through some of the fundamentals of putting together that communication and marketing plan. We can't go into every detail and answer every question, but hopefully it gives you something you can take away, or it might just kind of spring some ideas. And if you want to talk further about this, we'd be very happy to. So the first question, why do we need a communication plan? Well, I mean, you raised some of the issues in the chat there at the beginning, but effectively, we've got an organization that's in a current position, and we've got this vision of the future of a learning platform that's being used, that's making an impact in the organization, it's moving those KPIs that we want. So we've got where we are and where we'd like us to be. And we have certain forces maybe that are pushing us in the right direction, and we have forces that are opposing that. We've got that cynicism, we've got that entrenched view of maybe e-learning versus face-to-face. And what the communication plan is aiming to do is to say, you know what, let's attack and minimize some of those objections. Let's address some of those. And let's also communicate some of the real benefits that we're going to get. And we're going to do that in a sustained way such that we move the current position and attitude and action of our organization from that previously current position to the desired position. That's important to kind of keep in mind as we think about what we're doing when we're communication planning. It is really trying to move attitudes and actions of people. And breaking that down into kind of different audiences, why would we want to communicate? Well, it's important to demonstrate the benefit to all staff. But sometimes people think about communication and marketing, they think about just, advertising that this thing is coming, making mouse mats, mugs, whatever, that kind of, those sorts of things, and raising the profile of this thing that's happening. And that might raise some awareness, but we also need to be thinking about the actions of people, particularly line managers, who are probably going to be the people who free up their people to use the platform, who are really encouraging them and following up and making sure that it's being used. So we want to be thinking about their attitudes, but also their actions. So we can be building some anticipation and empowering our managers. Some of our communication is just going to be helping our managers know what's available and how they can use it to grow their team and to develop their team. It's obviously about supporting the effective launch. When we actually switch this on, where do I go? How do I log in? What am I supposed to do first? And critically, it's after we've launched, there should be in our plan a series of points where we're going to communicate the project success kind of post-launch. Okay, so we're going back and communicating that to senior leaders, to everybody in the business. Look, we did a good thing and it's working, and here's the evidence. We're going to share with you at the end a kind of template, a very simple template for kind of getting started with a communication plan. But these are roughly the things that I would have us be thinking about. Number one, we want to think about our different audiences. I mentioned line managers. We've got our general colleagues. We might have our senior leaders. We might have our administrators who are actually going to do some of the reports and making some assignments. So who will make a difference to the success of our platform? And then what do they need to think differently or do differently for each audience? So you've got your senior leaders, you've got your line managers. Each one of them has at least one objective that you're looking to change their mind or their action in some way. And then what message will be convincing in helping that mindset change or action change? How can you deliver the message? So you might have an intranet, you've got email, you've got your senior leaders going out and giving speeches perhaps, or writing blog posts or whatever videos, things that they might do. One really important one that we've used really successfully is looking ahead between now and your launch. Where are the points in the kind of organizational calendar where we're bringing together large numbers of managers? Whether it's senior leaders, whether it's regional managers, where are those events that we're bringing people together, either virtually on Zoom or Teams or physically? And how can I get our initiative onto that agenda so I can communicate directly with that audience when they're gathered together? I'm not going to go to the expense of doing an event just for my project, although you could do that, but why not ride on the back of some of the other things that are already happening in the calendar of your organization? Get onto that agenda and deliver the message specifically to that audience, and the message that you want them to hear, being clear about what you'd like them to do differently. And then you pull that all together, really, you think about, okay, when in the calendar between now and launch am I going to deliver those, or after launch? What sort of timing for that message through that channel? So that's a kind of overview of the template for a communication plan. And we'll share with you a kind of downloadable PDF that you can use just to kind of with some reminders of those things. I would normally, I would make that up as a table, but I would do it in a Word document so I can type, and it might be, you know, several pages long by the time that I'm finished. Some of the messages that I would write, I would be reusing for multiple audiences. So it's not like I'm writing a new message every time, but you know, so some of the values that the platform is going to bring, that some of those messages that are going to be appropriate for senior leaders, you might not need to say to the general colleagues. So you're kind of splitting your messages and sending them in the direction of the audience that needs to hear it. You'll have things like launch emails that you want to use. That's a very easy way. We're talking about a digital platform, so using digital communication means is really important. So you click on a link in the email, it takes you straight to the system. Maybe it logs you straight in because you've got single sign-on, and people are straight in. You're just lowering some of those barriers to getting involved. You want to be thinking about training your managers and your administrators on drawing reports and configuring things. But the final piece that I want to talk about is really is tied to the communication plan. And I've just put their senior leader stats. So here we're talking about post-launch, communicating back to those champions, those senior leaders who have endorsed this, who have given us the budget, and showing them that we are making the difference that we set out to make. Okay, so whatever way you're going to do that, it's really about saying you or we had this business need, people development have come in and implemented this, and look at the outcomes that we're seeing, look at the people outcomes we're seeing, look at the business outcomes. We can actually see a difference in our customer surveys. We can see a difference in our time to market, our quality indicators, whatever those things are that the business is caring about. How can you show that you've made some impact on that? I'm thinking of a project channel that we did for Channel 4, where this was just, you know, very clear, and we were able to see the metrics that we set out to move in the right direction. And really, one of the things they were trying to do was to get more people to be reporting things that they should have been reporting. So, you know, sometimes we think in compliance, we think, well, if we just kind of want to train people and make the problem go away. One of the things they wanted to see was more people realizing that there might be an issue, and then getting them to use the system to report the issue. And it was amazing. We were able to see the implementation of this leading directly to a great increase in what they were looking for, and one of the things they were looking for. So tying those things together, and then finding ways of communicating that back to your senior leaders. These are the people who commissioned the work, who gave you the budget. We'll sometimes create infographics for Breeio customers that they use then internally to kind of show, you know, how many people are engaged with it, you know, how many modules are being completed, but also doing maybe telephone conversations with managers. How's it going for you? How are your people finding it? Are you seeing a change in behavior in that thing that we were looking for? Here's where you might want to be reporting back that change in KPIs. Again, feeding that back through to the managers, to the senior leaders who commissioned the project. And that, because it will kind of keep the wind in the sails of your platform going forward. And it'll allow you also, the next time you're asking for budget, to be known as the department that actually delivers on the results. And so it's a really important way of kind of closing the loop. So that's a kind of very brief overview of these different phases: prepare, configure, and launch, and how they all come together. And we've gone into a bit more detail on some and skimmed over some of the others. As Connor said, throughout all of this, you're thinking about your people. It's easy sometimes in technical implementations to start, to get down into the weeds of the technology. It's important to have someone from IT on your side and on your team, but these are people implementations. This is about enabling the growth and development of people, but also in some cases it'll be about convincing people of the value of it and the usefulness of it in order to get it launched properly. So keeping people at the center is a really important thing. Connor, I think we've got a few minutes for some questions. I don't know if anyone has, or if there's been some questions added, Connor, that you want to ask, or if anyone has additional questions, please add those in the chat, and then we'll I'll just ask Connor to read out a few of those, and I'll see if I can address those.
Well, so Mary Kennedy asked a little bit earlier about the news area. So is there any LMS administrators that can edit this area? That's the only way we're looking at the Breeio system. That's right, Mary. So only LMS administrators can edit the news area. Learners can upload their own things to the shared activities feed. And of course, administrators can veto that as well. If you think someone's put something inappropriate there, you can remove that easily.
Yeah, so you'll have, that's part of those kind of system user levels. You'll have certain people that have rights to add news and do certain management things. And then if you've decided to allow people to share content, then people might be able to do that within that sharing area.
Now Susan mentioned at the start that it's important to her that enrollment of attendees is automatic. And annual. I think we touched on that very, very briefly.
Yeah, so certainly within the configuration stage, one of the things that you would be looking for there is integrating with the HR system or the people data, and that can be done in lots of different ways. And we've done that in lots of different ways. So, it may be that you don't have all of your people data in an HR system or something, but you have some sort of a spreadsheet of people centrally. So, you can upload that, or you can ask the system to look in the same place every day and draw that in, or it can look and kind of query live a system like a payroll system or an HR system. Lots of different ways to do that.
Now, if anyone else has any other questions, please just drop them in the chat, and you can either send them to the hosts and panelists, or you can send them to everyone.
Okay, I think I don't see any. Okay, one other there. Is there?
Oh, so Anna from Carefully has asked, is there any option to integrate live learning?
Yes, Anna, it's a good question. Yes, so you could do live learning like via Zoom, via Teams, WebEx, and yeah, so you can be delivering all of that content. And the way that it works within Breeio is that you're able to add that event, assign it to people, and they see that on their dashboard, and they've got like a live learning join button, and they click join, they come together, they're in the event, just like we're in this event now. And then at the end of the event, the details come back straight into Breeio and mark their attendance. So it's very well kind of joined up with Zoom and WebEx and Teams for live learning.
Now, Matthew, Susan has said, and I'm really glad she said this, I wish to do away with spreadsheets. Now, the less admin and labor intense, the better. And that's absolutely what we believe. We actually ran a campaign a couple of years ago called Say Goodbye to Spreadsheets.
Yeah. Again, one of the, we didn't go into that here, but if that's something you'd like to see more of in the system, please reach out to Connor after this. But spreadsheets are often the way that we're trying to manage who's been trained, what date they were last trained, when do they need to do, what do I need to set up. And a learning platform, and certainly Breeio, will manage all of that for you, so that there aren't any more spreadsheets for tracking that. It's clear who needs to do what training, when they last did it. It will automatically reassign training that needs to be done again. So something annual or every 2 years. If it's e-learning, it'll automatically be assigned. They'll do that. If it's not, they'll automatically be reassigned that they need to book on to the live learning course to complete that. So we're on a mission to try to make your lives easier, not harder. So a lot of these things are automated, and the system will take care of it for you.
Louise Bone has asked, can you link to external content, such as ebooks hosted on an external reader via single sign-on?
Yes. So I might not be able to say confidently, about all those links in that chain, but Breeio is one of the leaders, I think, in the area of blended learning. So in configuring the courses that you want to create and preparing those and planning those, you've got options for linking to things that are outside the system on the web, using SCORM or Tin Can XAPI modules within the system, doing live learning, having kind of workplace checklists maybe that need to be done, things that need to be observed by someone else and signed off. All of those things are options for you within the configuration of your course, and certainly linking out to something else. We've got a lot of customers who are linking out maybe to content that's being offered on another platform by an industry body, for example, doing that content and then kind of seamlessly coming back into Breeio. So I'd encourage you to speak to Connor about that more.
Well, we've got a couple more questions about the reporting tool. So Mary Kennedy has asked, well, I know that the answer to this is yes. Does the system have the ability to create bespoke reports and schedule them to be sent to line managers? Absolutely, and in some pretty intelligent ways that allow you to just schedule one report and then send out multiple bespoke reports that are filtered to the line manager's specifications. So you can do that very, very quickly and very powerfully. And then Anna has asked, what level of granularity is there in the analytics function? E.g., can you work out where learners do less well, question by question, as well as the usual completion figures?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is yes as well. So there are a couple of different ways that you can create detailed reports on how people are answering each question. So Breeio comes with an assessment builder and a survey builder inside the tool that gives you really quite detailed granularity, including aggregated and disaggregated answer data, a sentiment tracker for the survey analyzer. And then also, if you're using e-learning, and as long as you're tagging everything correctly when you're authoring your e-learning or using off-the-shelf third-party e-learning, you'll be able to generate detailed reports on how people are answering each question to figure out where people are making mistakes, or maybe there's part of the course is not quite at the right level for your audience.
That's right. Yeah, that's really powerful. You can look at the individual, but you can also look at the cohort or all the people that are taking the course and see where they're tripping up. And so it's something you can follow up with, maybe if it's a training need, or maybe look back at that question that you're asking and say, have we asked that in the right way?
Thank you. So I think just before we finish this this presentation up, this is part of what we're calling the Breeio Bright Insights series, and we'd really like to know what you're struggling with, what you'd like some insight on, and whether it's an LMS or e-learning or some other aspect of L&D. And if you just let us know in the chat, we'll take that feedback into planning our next session, because we'd really like your input into that.
We just say also that we'll be sending out an email after with a link to this video, but also with a link to the Breeio website with some resources that I talked about along the way. So that communication planning template, people data planner, and then just the kind of overview of the three phases that we talked about, just as a reminder there. But you can go there now; those resources are there. But Connor will be sending out an email in the next couple of days with a link to the video as well. We're really glad that you joined us this morning. We'll be in touch again with that video and email. Thanks for your questions. I hope that's been helpful this morning. And please, again, do reach out. There's a link on this resources page for kind of requesting a call or a conversation. We'd love to pick up on some of those specific things and actually show you how you can meet those needs within Breeio. But thanks for joining us, and have a good rest of the day.